New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio will travel to Iowa and South Carolina after announcing his run for the presidency this morning.
As president, I will take on the wealthy. I will take on the big corporations. I will not rest until this government serves working people.
De Blasio is the 24th candidate and third mayor to enter the race for the Democratic nomination. Ed O'Keefe is covering the 2020 campaign. Ed, good morning.
Good morning.
Bill de Blasio is the answer to what question that isn't being answered?
Unclear. And I love, God bless the New York Post this morning. New Yorkers laughing on the cover. This is probably a better. America,
you've been warned.
Yes.
Yes.
I think the problem is he thinks if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
But
if you look at polling, but here's the thing, polling shows
yes.
National Democrats would prefer he maintain a New York state of mind.
Yeah.
With apologies to Frank Sinatra and Billy Joel. Look, he, like all these other Democrats, seems to think there is something he can contribute to this conversation. He already this morning touting the universal pre-K program that he's established here in New York, the fact that they're pushing for environmental protections, that, up against someone like Steve Bullock just yesterday in Montana saying that, look at my more moderate record. We have to talk to states in the middle of the country. Each of them believes they've got some compelling argument that could somehow help them prevail.
The field may continue to grow. Stacey Abrams still looking at that.
Please make it stop.
What's the practical effect? I mean, in some ways, does this strengthen Biden's hand as the front runner?
That's
because
the thing.
All of them will divide the anti-Biden vote.
Well, and this is the interesting dynamic that I don't think they anticipated. His numbers have only improved. If you look at numbers, especially in South Carolina now, where he's leading by 33 points in one survey, he's got a commanding lead over the president, hypothetically, in a Pennsylvania matchup. All of these guys are just continuing to bolster him, Bernie Sanders to some extent, leaving open the possibility that maybe one of them somehow breaks out of the pack later on.
But it's an
alternative.
So they all divide the vote, and then Biden stays at the top, which is not unlike what happened to Donald Trump in the last race. But there is also the other option, which is that everybody decides to go after Joe Biden. We saw Kamala Harris saying that the crime bill that Joe Biden was so much in support of in the 90s did, in fact, lead to mass incarceration, which felt like the first kind of serious knock on him from a fellow candidate. Do you expect more of that? And how serious do you think Kamala Harris is?
At this point, I think looking at how he has held up over the last few weeks, they don't have a choice but to go after him now, at least in some way, whether it's the crime bill, whether, as some liberals this week have gone after him on his environmental record, whether it's some other aspect of the work he did as a senator or with the Obama administration. It's starting to happen. It will happen. He's anticipating it, and it'll be interesting to see whether it does anything to bring him down to earth.
But with 24 candidates, is there such a thing as too many candidates? I read an article in the New York Times recently that said it's never bad to be able to say behind your name, former presidential candidate.
That's part of it for some of these people. But look, I think the guys in the graphics department would tell you that this is too many because you can barely see their faces on the screen anymore.
And when you look at the 24, without naming names, realistically, who do you think really has no shot?
If you'd asked me that 4 years ago, people would have said Donald Trump had no shot, right?
Yeah.
And now he's president. So who are we to say?
But he had other things going for him.
He did. He had the universal name recognition. None of these guys, with the exception of maybe Biden and Sanders, can say that they have name recognition that holds up in quite the same way.
I'm always curious how we fall into stereotypes in describing people in politics, particularly the 6 women who are running for president. Senator Kamala Harris was talked about the other day whether she's sick of talk about how she would be the perfect running mate. Here's how she responded. Listen.
I think that Joe Biden would be a great running mate. As vice president, he's proven that he knows how to do the job.
Are most of these women being judged unfairly as potential running mates rather than as primary winners on the ticket?
First of all, that's what we call the definition of a clapback. That was
very good.
That was a good move on her part. It's a question that's been asked of the men. And I think she's spinning it there to say, wait a second, why aren't you asking us whether we would pick a guy? So there is perhaps something to that. There's 6 of them. They're all, perfectly qualified people who very well could emerge as the nominee. Any of these, most of these guys could potentially emerge as the nominee.
Well, the more people that get in, what did your dad tell you?
It ensures full employment for you, son.
Yes.
He's right about that.
There you go. Thank you, Ed O'Keefe.